What's up, guys? Back again, Car Talk. Today I wanted to share an experience I had yesterday. Now I will change the names and the location of the individual to protect their identity, but the basis of the story will be exactly the same. I was in discussion yesterday with a gentleman we will call David. That's not his real name, but his real name doesn't matter. His story does. And while speaking with David, who is a rather fit 60-year-old man, very lean, probably 5'7", 150 pounds or so, looks like a runner. We had a long, robust conversation about politics and investment strategies. He had recently retired, had sold his home, bought a new home, gutted, renovated the new home, and we discussed all the fun parts about that process. And as we got deeper into the conversation, David shared with me that he had undergone a triple bypass surgery 3 years ago. Wow. Rather shocking to stare at the gentleman. And being who I am, and respectfully probing, I asked him if he could share, well, what had happened? And what was the onset? When did he become aware of this situation? And how did he proceed to get medical help? And his wife was standing with him, and it was a joint conversation, and truly she did most of the talking, which was very interesting and very entertaining and very enjoyable. And this part of the conversation, David really did most of the talking, his personal experience. He and his wife, one late October day, were riding their bikes in the morning as they normally do. They would ride their bikes to their local cafe, they would eat breakfast, and they would ride their bikes home. Maybe it was a 2-mile bike ride each way. Got their exercise in, they got a nice little breakfast, they went home, and they went about their day. So as they were riding on this one fall day, David had made a comment saying that the cafe had given him indigestion. And his wife had said, you know what? Why don't we make a quick right turn up here and just swing by the hospital? The hospital was only a mile away. And David said, don't be ridiculous. I'm fine. It was the food. And she said, okay, honey. And she slowly eased back on her bike, letting him take the lead so she could watch him. Normally, she would always ride first. Now, as the days went on and they continued their habit of their stroll, his wife had noticed that David doesn't pedal as vigorously as he used to. And his bike was much slower than it normally was. And he seemed to be laboring from time to time. On one of these rides, they were pedaling, and David took the right turn. And the wife said, honey, are you okay? And he said, I think so, but I just want to be sure. And they rode the bike straight to the hospital. Now, in the hospital, the doctors ran a series of tests. They put him on a treadmill to run a stress test. Within about 90 seconds of beginning the stress test, the doctors kind of frantically pressed some buttons on the machine, stopped the machine, asked David to get off the machine, and they said, David, we see some things right now that are a little troubling. We want to run a further test. And I believe the next test they ran was an angiogram. And as I recall, the angiogram is a contrast test in which they inject dye, and with that dye, they actually can see the vascular system. And I apologize, I'm not a cardiologist. But it gives them a much more clear view of what's happening internally to the heart and all the veins, the vascular system that runs to and from the heart. And during this test, they saw that David's lower left ventricle was over 80% blocked. They immediately admitted him, and that same day, they performed a triple bypass surgery on him. The issue David had is known as the Widowmaker, and we've all heard of the Widowmaker. The Widowmaker is a scary, scary thing, ladies and gentlemen. The Widowmaker is a known condition that is relatively symptomless. You don't know, for the most part, that you have this issue, this blockage of the lower left ventricle. You don't know that you have this system because the effects and side effects and symptoms are not very apparent. They could be misconstrued very easily as a bad night of sleep, just a little bit of dehydration and I have a headache, a little acid reflux, I'm just a little tired today. Very difficult for many people. The police on a nice little bike ride with kids, how cool is that? Anyway. So, this Widowmaker, and even David's resilience or resistance to believe he had something going on. And the onset was pretty quick. From the time he had the acid reflux, let's say, from the first day on the bike in the cafe, to when he actually had the open heart surgery, it was about 2 months or so. A little bit less than 2 months, they said. Many times, people will go much longer. And unfortunately, the next day, a week later, a month later, David and his wife could have been on those bikes, and David very well could have had a massive heart attack and never come back. So I share this story with you because this is a real story, and these are real people, and this is a very real circumstance. Now, this happened to David when he was 58 years old. 58 years old, and 58 is not old. 58 is not old, although for this condition, it's not uncommon. We hear about this with primarily men, not exclusive, but high majority is men, in their 30s, in their 40s, in their 50s. It is not uncommon to, unfortunately, hear about this condition for men in their early 20s. Rarely, but possibly. So I wanted to share this with you so you can remember this, and hopefully remember this video forever. And hopefully you take me up on my advice to go to your doctor at a minimum of twice per year. And you get every test possible. And you build a baseline. And you become good friends with your doctor. And you make this a part of your daily or your yearly routine. And anytime you have any sort of issue, you go to your doctor and you get it checked out. The cost of getting these tests pales in comparison to the cost of having a larger life-threatening event, or worse yet, losing your life by something that was preventable, or at the very least correctable, as in David's situation. David, since the heart attack,